Millionaire goes to the orphanage to deliver gifts and is amazed to see a boy who looks identical to him when he was little. What happens next is truly incredible. Felipe Salias was one of the richest and most influential men in the city. At 39, he had built a huge fortune in real estate, but that wasn't what made him special. Felipe was deeply respected for his generosity and all the good deeds he did. He truly believed that doing good could transform society and fill people's hearts with hope. Since he was young, Felipe had always been very ambitious. He was born into a humble family and worked tirelessly to build his empire. At first, his intense desire to get rich made him a bit arrogant, only caring about making more money. Business was everything to him, and financial success was his main goal. Felipe married Andrea, a sweet and devoted woman who saw beyond his tough exterior and believed in the kind man he could be. Together, they had a son, Jose, who brought a special joy to Felipe's life. But life has its way of teaching lessons. 6 years ago, a car accident took the lives of Andrea and Jose, forever changing how Felipe viewed the world. The guilt and pain consumed him, and he realized that no amount of money could replace the people he loved. Felipe had fallen asleep at the wheel while driving home from a party late at night, a mistake he relived every night in his insomnia. Determined to make a difference, Felipe devoted his life to helping those who had less. He funded schools, hospitals, and various charities. Felipe Salas' fortune became more than just a symbol of success. It turned into a tool for bringing positive change to the world. One day, during one of his regular visits to charitable organizations, he decided to visit an orphanage in a nearby town, run by a woman named Olga. When he arrived, Felipe was warmly welcomed by Olga, a middle-aged woman with a kind smile and compassionate eyes. Olga showed Felipe around the orphanage. While the place was in decent condition, it was clear they needed more resources. She explained the challenges they faced, from lacking funds to care for the children to needing more volunteers. Felipe's heart ached as he saw the children, reminding him of his own son. During their conversation, Olga mentioned that, with Christmas approaching, it would be wonderful if they could provide a special celebration for the children with the gifts they wished for. The sparkle in her eyes as she spoke about the kids showed her deep dedication and love for them. Moved by the idea, Felipe immediately promised to help. He assured Olga that he would organize a big Christmas celebration, keeping it a surprise for the kids. With the help of his team, Felipe began planning every detail. He hired a professional Santa Claus, ordered a giant Christmas tree, and started buying personalized gifts for each child, from toys to clothes and books. In the days that followed, Felipe Salas threw himself into organizing the event. He wanted every child to feel the magic of Christmas and believe in the power of kindness. His office, usually a place for serious business meetings, was now filled with Christmas decorations and gift lists. Felipe personally chose the gifts, imagining the smile on each child's face. As he planned the celebration, Felipe reflected on his own transformation. He remembered how Andrea always talked about the importance of helping others, and how he didn't pay much attention back then. Now, he understood. The meticulous planning and genuine desire to do good showed how much Felipe had changed. Now, he wasn't just a wealthy man. He was someone who understood the true value of compassion and generosity. With the Christmas celebration approaching, Felipe felt both excited and nervous. He knew this event would not only bring joy to the children, but also fill his own heart with a sense of purpose and redemption. What Felipe didn't know was that this act of kindness would lead to a surprising encounter that would change his life in ways he could never have imagined. As he finished the last details of the party, Felipe looked at an old photo of Andrea and Jose on his desk. He smiled, feeling closer to them than ever. He was determined to honor their memories, not just with words, but with actions that would make a real difference in other people's lives. The big day finally arrived. The orphanage was buzzing with excitement, and the children could barely contain their joy. The walls were decorated with colorful garlands, twinkling lights, and carefully hung Christmas ornaments. A huge Christmas tree, glowing with lights and covered in ornaments, stood in the center of the main hall. The scent of freshly baked cookies and hot chocolate filled the air, adding to the festive atmosphere. Felipe Salas arrived early, accompanied by his team and a hired Santa Claus, dressed in a shiny red suit and a fluffy white beard. The children were thrilled to see him, shouting with joy and running to greet him. Olga, the director, welcomed them with a warm smile and eyes shining with gratitude. "Welcome, welcome," Olga exclaimed. "The children are so excited. They have no idea about the surprise we've planned." Felipe smiled, feeling the contagious energy of the children around him. He had put so much time and heart into preparing this celebration, and seeing the happiness on the kids' faces was the best reward he could imagine. The gift-giving began shortly after. Children lined up, eager and full of anticipation. Santa Claus called each one by name, handing out the carefully wrapped packages. Each gift was met with laughter and exclamations of surprise. Felipe watched it all with a big smile, feeling a wave of joy warm his heart. As the children unwrapped their presents, Felipe walked around the hall, interacting with them and watching their reactions. Each smile, each look of wonder, reminded Felipe why he had decided to dedicate himself to philanthropy. That's when he noticed a boy sitting alone in a corner, away from the commotion. The boy had tousled brown hair and big, curious eyes. There was something about the boy's shy expression that caught Felipe Salas's attention. He decided to approach, carrying a specially wrapped gift. "Hi, can I sit here with you?" Felipe asked gently. The boy, with his head down, didn't say anything. Felipe smiled and sat beside him, holding out the gift. "This is for you. I hope you like it." The boy hesitated for a moment, but then accepted the gift with trembling hands. Slowly he began to unwrap the package, revealing a shiny, remote-controlled car. "Thank you," he murmured, almost inaudibly. "You're welcome. What's your name?" Felipe asked. "Mateo," the boy replied, still gazing at the gift in awe. When Mateo finally looked up at him, Felipe felt a chill run down his spine. There was something unsettlingly familiar about this boy, as if he were looking into a mirror of his own past. The resemblance was striking. The same face shape, the same expressive eyes. Felipe began to sweat and his hands trembled slightly. "Do you like remote-controlled cars, Mateo?" Felipe managed to ask, trying to keep his composure. Mateo nodded, still smiling. "Yes, a lot. I've never had one before." Felipe took a deep breath, trying to process the flood of emotions he was feeling. Seeing Mateo brought back painful memories of his own son, Jose. The resemblance between the two was disturbing and inexplicable. After handing out the remaining gifts, Felipe got up and went to find Olga. He needed to know more about Mateo and why he looked so much like his own son. "Olga, can I talk to you for a moment?" he asked, finding her near the Christmas tree. "Of course, Felipe. Is everything okay?" Olga asked, noticing the serious look on Felipe's face. "I met a boy here. His name is Mateo. There's something about him that reminds me of someone I knew a long time ago. Can you tell me more about him?" Olga nodded and led Felipe to a quieter corner of the room. "Mateo is 7 years old. He arrived at the orphanage as a baby. We don't know exactly when he was born. The story we were told, through a note found with him, said that Mateo's parents died in an accident. Someone who couldn't take care of him left him here." Olga's words made Felipe break out in a cold sweat again. He thanked Olga, but said he needed to go home to process everything he had learned. When he got home, Felipe took out an old family photo. The accident that took his wife Andrea and his son Jose happened exactly 6 years ago. He had fallen asleep at the wheel, and when he woke up from a coma 3 months later, he learned that Andrea and Jose had died. The guilt had consumed him ever since. Now, Mateo's story wouldn't leave his mind. There were too many coincidences to ignore. He needed to know more about this boy who seemed like a reflection of his own past. Something inside him said that this connection was more than just a coincidence. In the days that followed, Felipe's restlessness only grew. Mateo's story and the disturbing resemblance between them haunted him constantly. Determined to act, Felipe scheduled a meeting with his longtime lawyer, Enrique Morales. Enrique was an experienced and trustworthy man who had helped Felipe through several crucial moments in his life. As he entered Enrique's elegant office, Felipe was warmly greeted. Enrique rose from his leather chair and extended his hand. "Felipe, it's always great to see you. How can I help you today?" Felipe sat down, trying to gather his thoughts. Took a deep breath and began to explain. "Enrique, I met a boy at the orphanage I'm helping. His name is Matteo. He's 7 years old, and somehow he looks a lot like I did when I was a kid. It's like looking into a mirror of my past. I can't stop thinking about it. I want to know more about him and maybe even adopt him." Enrique listened carefully, his expression growing more serious as Felipe spoke. He knew well the tragedy that had marked Felipe's life, and the intensity of his words didn't go unnoticed. "I understand, Felipe. Adopting a child is a big step, but before anything else, we need to understand the legal process involved. Adoption can be long and complicated, especially if there aren't clear records about the boy's biological parents." Felipe nodded, feeling a knot in his stomach. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he felt like he had to do this. "I want to do everything the right way, Enrique. I don't know where to start." Enrique took out a notepad and began writing. "First, we need to gather all the available documentation about Matteo. We need the information from the orphanage and any records they might have. Then, we submit an adoption request. This process can take months, sometimes over a year." Enrique paused, looking directly at Felipe. "But there's something we can do to speed up the process. Felipe, if there's any chance that you and Matteo are related, it could make things easier. Have you thought about doing a DNA test?" Felipe felt a shiver run down his spine. The idea that Matteo might really be his son was both hopeful and terrifying. "Enrique, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Boy looks like me, but how could he be my biological son? I only had one girlfriend, Andrea, and she died in the accident with our son, Jose. I don't see how Matteo could be my son." Enrique nodded, respecting Felipe's hesitation. "I understand, but still, it's a possibility we shouldn't completely dismiss. If you ever change your mind, I'm here to help." Felipe thanked Enrique and stood up to leave. He needed to process everything they had discussed. As he walked towards the door, Enrique continued, "Felipe, I know this is hard for you, but sometimes the truth can be found in unexpected places. If you feel this connection with Matteo, it might be worth exploring all the possibilities. We're talking about giving him a chance at a better life, and maybe finding answers to the questions that have been haunting you." Felipe paused at the door, absorbing Enrique's words. He knew the lawyer was right. The uncertainty and the need for answers weighed heavily on his heart. "Thanks, Enrique. I'll think about it. In the meantime, I'll focus on the adoption process. I want to give Matteo the life he deserves." Enrique smiled and nodded. "We'll make it happen, Felipe. I'll be with you every step of the way." Felipe Sáez left Enrique's office with his mind still spinning. As he drove home, he kept thinking about what the lawyer had said. The idea of doing a DNA test stirred up emotions he hadn't expected. For now, though, he decided to focus on the adoption process, determined to give Matteo a chance at a better life. When Felipe got home, he looked at his family photo once more. He knew he had a long road ahead, but he was set on uncovering the truth and, if possible, bringing Matteo into his life. Felt like fate had put that boy in his path for a reason, and he wouldn't rest until he fully understood this mysterious connection. Felipe's restlessness didn't fade. The unanswered questions about Matteo plagued him day and night. So, he decided to go beyond the adoption process and hired a private investigator to find out more about the boy's background. He wanted to understand the strange resemblance and maybe find a clue that explained the connection he felt with Matteo. Donato Vasquez was a well-known investigator in the area, famous for solving the most complex cases. Felipe set up a meeting with him at his office, a discreet place full of files and surveillance equipment. "Mr. Sáez, it's a pleasure to meet you. I heard you have an interesting case for me," Donato said, shaking Felipe's hand firmly. "Yes, Donato. Thank you for seeing me so quickly. I need you to find out everything you can about a boy named Matteo, who lives in an orphanage. He's 7 years old, and his story is surrounded by mystery. I want to know who his biological parents are and how he ended up in the orphanage." Felipe Sáez looked at Donato and said, "The resemblance between Matteo and my deceased son is so striking, I need answers." Donato nodded, grabbed a notepad, and started writing. "Got it. Let's start with the basics. I'll need access to the orphanage records and any other documents you have. After that, we'll follow up on all available leads." Felipe handed Donato a folder with copies of the records Olga had given him. Donato quickly reviewed the documents, making mental notes. I'll start by talking to the orphanage director and checking the records. I'll also look for any additional information that might not be in these documents. We might need to dig deeper, perhaps even into local hospitals and the areas where Matteo was found. In the following days, Donato began his investigation at the orphanage. He spoke with Olga, who provided all the information she had about Matteo, including the note found with him. Donato took photos of the note and made copies of the documents, searching for any useful clues. Next, Donato visited the local hospital to check for any records of a baby being left or abandoned around the time Matteo was found. He also reviewed newspaper and news archives from that period, looking for any mention of a couple who might be connected to Matteo. During the investigation, Donato found some intriguing clues. First, he discovered that around the same time Matteo was left at the orphanage, there was a serious car accident nearby. The records showed that a couple had died, but there was no mention of a child being involved. This caught Donato's attention because it matched the story Olga had told Felipe. Donato gathered all this information, knowing there was still much to investigate. He was just starting a complicated case, but he was confident that, with time and effort, he could find the answers Felipe was searching for. While waiting for progress on the investigation, Felipe began to visit the orphanage more often. Each visit was a chance to get to know the boy who intrigued him and build a connection that felt more natural each time. During the first visits, Felipe kept things light and fun, bringing small gifts and toys that the kids enjoyed. Gradually, Matteo started to feel more comfortable around Felipe, even though his natural shyness made him hesitant to open up completely. One sunny Saturday, Felipe brought a new soccer ball to the orphanage. Knowing that Matteo liked soccer, he hoped it would be a good way to connect. "Hi, Matteo. How about we play a little today?" Felipe asked, holding up the ball. Matteo looked at him with interested eyes, but still a bit hesitant. I like soccer, but I usually play alone," he murmured. "Well, today we can play together. How about it? We can form a team and see who scores more goals," Felipe suggested with a friendly smile. Matteo nodded shyly and followed Felipe to the small field behind the orphanage. They started off slowly, with Felipe letting Matteo set the pace. Gradually, Matteo loosened up, showing off his skills and even trying some dribbles. Felipe, although not as skilled as Matteo, was having a great time. After an hour of playing, both were tired but happy. They sat down on the grass to rest, and Felipe took the chance to chat more with Matteo. "You play really well, Matteo. Have you been practicing for a long time?" Felipe asked, curious about the boy's interests. Matteo smiled proudly. "I've liked playing soccer since I was little. At the orphanage, whenever I can, I kick the ball around. Makes me feel free." "I see. And besides soccer, what else do you like to do?" Felipe asked, wanting to know more about Matteo's other interests. "I like to read adventure stories and play with toy cars. Sometimes I draw too. I like to imagine different places and draw them," Matteo replied, still a bit shy but more open. "Drawing? That's awesome. Maybe you can show me some of your drawings the next time I come," Felipe suggested, excited to see more of Matteo's world. Matteo nodded, a shy smile spreading across his face. "I'd like that." Felipe's visits to the orphanage became a regular event. Every time he arrived, the kids gathered around him, but he always made special time for Matteo. They played soccer, read books together, and as promised, Matteo showed him his drawings. Felipe was amazed by Matteo's creativity, seeing fantastic worlds and adventures that looked like they came straight from a fairy tale. Over time, Matteo started to open up more about his hopes and dreams. Talked about wanting to be a professional soccer player, or maybe a famous artist, traveling the world and seeing new places. Felipe listened carefully, encouraging Matteo and showing him that all his dreams were possible. This made Matteo's eyes shine with excitement, and he eagerly looked forward to Felipe's visit. For Felipe, these visits were like a balm for his heart, filling a gap he didn't even know was there. The bond between them grew stronger with each visit. Felipe felt more and more that he was on the right path. Matteo wasn't just a boy in an orphanage. He was becoming an important part of his life, and Felipe was determined to make sure this bond lasted. As Felipe built his connection with Matteo, Donato continued his careful investigation. Donato spent hours going through old files, talking to hospital staff, and chatting with local residents who might have information about Matteo's past. After weeks of investigating, he finally found an important clue. One cloudy afternoon, while he was reviewing old hospital records, he came across a document that caught his eye. It was a medical report from 6 years ago, describing a car accident involving a couple. The report mentioned that the couple had died in the accident, but there was an extra note. Male baby found at the scene, taken to the hospital for evaluation. Donato's heart raced. He thought this might be the breakthrough he had been searching for. He continued to investigate and managed to access the hospital admission records from that time. He confirmed that the baby had been brought to the hospital, but the records were unclear about what happened afterward. It seemed the baby disappeared from the records shortly after admission. With this new information, Donato gathered all the documents and set up an urgent meeting with Felipe. At Felipe's office, Donato shared his findings. "Mr. Salas, I found some information that I believe is extremely important for Matteo's case. There are records of a car accident that happened around the same time Matteo was left at the orphanage. The report mentions a couple who died in the accident and a baby who was taken to the hospital. The records for this baby match Matteo's age and circumstances." Felipe listened closely, feeling a shiver run down his spine. Coincidences were unsettling. "And what else did you find, Donato?" "Well, there's something even more intriguing. In the hospital records, the names of the parents who died in the accident are Andrea and Felipe. I know it sounds unbelievable, but those are the names on the document." Felipe was stunned, unable to process what he was hearing. Andrea and Felipe were the names of him and his late wife. How could these names be connected to an accident and a baby? "This doesn't make any sense, Donato. How can these names be in the records? I was in the accident, Andrea died, and our son, Jose, did too. I was in a coma for 3 months, and when I woke up, they had already been buried." Donato nodded, understanding Felipe's confusion. "I get it, Mr. Salas. At first, I was puzzled too. But these are the names on the documents. We need to dig deeper to understand how this is possible. There might be an error or something we're not seeing clearly. We may need more hospital records or even witnesses to clear up this confusion." Felipe was bewildered. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place in ways he never imagined. He needed answers and was more determined than ever to uncover the truth about Matteo. "Donato, keep investigating. I want to know exactly what happened. This coincidence is too disturbing to ignore. If there's a real connection between Matteo and my family, we need to find out." Donato agreed, determined to unravel the mystery. He knew he was only scratching the surface of something much bigger and more complex. With Felipe's permission, Donato would continue following every possible lead until the truth was finally revealed. Felipe was deeply shaken by Donato's revelations. The possibility that Matteo could be his biological son, which he had initially dismissed, now seemed unavoidable. The coincidences were too troubling to ignore. For days, Felipe pondered what to do. He thought about Matteo, the visits to the orphanage, and the bond he had developed with the boy. More and more, he felt he needed a definitive answer. The uncertainty was consuming him, and he knew there was only one way to find out the truth: a DNA test. On a cold winter morning, Felipe made his decision. He scheduled a meeting with Enrique, his lawyer, to discuss the next steps. In Enrique's elegant office, Felipe explained his decision with renewed determination. "Enrique, I've thought a lot about this. I want to get a DNA test to find out if Matteo is really my son. I can't live with this doubt. I need to know the truth." Enrique nodded, understanding the seriousness of Felipe's decision. "I understand, Felipe. Getting a DNA test is a sensible choice given the circumstances. We will arrange everything discreetly to protect Matteo's privacy and ensure the results are accurate." The preparations for the DNA test started immediately. Enrique organized the collection of samples from Felipe and Matteo, making sure everything was done professionally and confidentially. Felipe explained the situation to Olga, who, although surprised, agreed to help. When the day of the sample collection arrived, Felipe was nervous. Felipe went to the orphanage to pick up Matteo, trying to stay calm so he wouldn't worry the boy. On the way to the clinic, Matteo was curious but trusted Felipe. "Where are we going, Felipe?" Matteo asked, looking out the car window. We're going to a clinic for a test, Mateo. It's just to check a few things. It won't hurt, I promise. Felipe replied, trying to reassure him. As they drove, Mateo admired the fancy car. This car is so cool. I've never been in one like this before. At the orphanage, we only ride the bus when we go on outings. Felipe smiled, enjoying Mateo's excitement. I'm glad you like it. Maybe one day we can go on lots of adventures together. At the clinic, the sample collection was quick and painless. Mateo was brave and followed the nurse's instructions carefully. Felipe, however, was a bundle of nerves. Every second felt like an eternity as he waited for the procedure to finish. After the samples were collected, Felipe and Mateo headed back to the car. On the way back to the orphanage, Mateo couldn't hide his curiosity. Felipe, why do we need to do this test? Is it to see if I'm sick? Felipe took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. No, Mateo, it's not to see if you're sick. It's just to check a few important things. You're a very special kid to me, and I want to make sure everything is okay. Mateo seemed satisfied with the answer, though still a bit confused. I trust you, Felipe. If you say it's important, then it must be. In the following days, the wait for the results was tough for Felipe. Felipe was having a hard time focusing on his work. His nights were restless, and his thoughts kept going back to Mateo. He imagined all the possible scenarios, trying to emotionally prepare for any outcome. Meanwhile, he continued to visit Mateo regularly at the orphanage, keeping up with their activities and conversations. Each visit made their bond even stronger, making it even more important for Felipe to find out the truth. Finally, the waiting days came to an end. The call from Enrique, letting him know the DNA test results were ready, brought a mix of relief and anxiety to Felipe. He knew he was about to discover something that could change his life forever. The next morning, Felipe headed to Enrique's office. The trip there seemed longer than usual, with every traffic light and corner heightening his anxiety. When he finally arrived, he took a deep breath before going in. Enrique was waiting for him in the meeting room, holding a sealed envelope. His face was serious, but there was an understanding look in his eyes. Felipe, here are the results, Enrique said, handing him the envelope. You're ready, we can open it together. Felipe nodded, sitting down in the chair in front of the desk. His hands were shaking a little as he took the envelope. With one last look at Enrique, Felipe opened the envelope and took out the document. His eyes quickly scanned the lines of text, searching for the crucial information. When he finally found what he was looking for, he stopped, reading and rereading the words to make sure he understood correctly. Felipe, the results confirm that Mateo is Jose, your biological son, Enrique said, breaking the silence. He survived the accident. Felipe felt a wave of intense emotion. Tears began to well up in his eyes as he tried to process the news. Mateo, the boy he had bonded with so strongly, was actually his son Jose, whom he thought he had lost forever. He's alive. My son is alive, Felipe murmured, more to himself than to Enrique. Enrique nodded, giving Felipe a moment to absorb the revelation. This changes everything, Felipe. Now we can start the adoption process more directly since you are Mateo's biological father. This should speed up the legal process. Felipe wiped away his tears and looked at Enrique with determination. I want him to come live with me as soon as possible. He's already lost too much time away from his family, and we also need to change his name back to Jose. Enrique started making the necessary notes. I'll handle everything. It will be a simpler process now that we have confirmation of kinship. We'll make sure everything is done correct. In the following days, Felipe continued to visit Mateo at the orphanage, keeping the news of the results a secret until everything was ready. He wanted the moment to be special, a new beginning for both of them. Meanwhile, Felipe spent many sleepless nights thinking about the incredible journey that fate had set for him and his son. The joy of knowing that Jose was alive mixed with the sadness of the accident and the loss of Andrea. Each visit to the orphanage made Felipe even more determined to give Mateo, or rather Jose, the loving and safe life he deserved. Finally, Enrique told Felipe that all the paperwork was ready to start the formal adoption process. Felipe felt a great sense of relief and joy. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, but he was now determined to do everything he could to be the best father possible for Jose. With the confirmation that Mateo was indeed his son Jose, Felipe was determined to complete the adoption process as quickly as possible. The truth revealed by the DNA test had changed his life, and now he had a clear goal: to bring Jose home. Even with the confirmed relationship, the adoption still had legal and emotional hurdles. Enrique, Felipe's trusted lawyer, began handling all the necessary paperwork to ensure the adoption would be done as quickly and efficiently as possible. Felipe, even with the confirmed relationship, we still need to follow the legal procedures for adoption, Enrique explained during one of their meetings. This includes psychological evaluations, social worker visits, and a series of documents that need to be presented to the court. Felipe nodded, understanding the complexity of the process. Do whatever is necessary, Enrique. I'm ready to face any challenge to bring Jose home. As the legal process continued, Felipe knew it was time to talk to Mateo about the adoption and reveal the truth. During one of his visits to the orphanage, Felipe took Mateo for a walk in the park. It was a quiet place where they could talk openly. Sitting on a bench under the shade of a big tree, Felipe looked into Mateo's eyes and held his small hands. Mateo, I have something very important to tell you, Felipe began, his voice soft and full of emotion. Remember the test we did a while ago? The results showed something amazing. You're not just a special child to me. You're my real son. You are Jose, my son who I thought I had lost in the accident. Mateo looked at Felipe with wide eyes, trying to process the news. Am I really your son? He asked, his voice filled with surprise and hope. Felipe nodded, tears streaming down his face. Yes, you are my son, Jose. I want to officially adopt you, so we can be a family again. Mateo started crying, but a big smile lit up his face. He hugged Felipe tightly. I always felt you were special to me, Dad. I also want to be part of your family. With the big reveal made and their bond even stronger, Felipe continued with the adoption process. Enrique handled all the necessary evaluation, and social workers visited Felipe's home to make sure it was a safe and loving place for Jose. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived. Felipe, along with Enrique and Mateo, entered the courtroom. The judge reviewed all the documents and evaluations, listening carefully to Enrique's explanations. Mr. Salas, said the judge, looking directly at Felipe, the documents are in order, and all the evaluations show that you are a fit and devoted father. The judge looked at Felipe and said, I'm leaning towards approving this adoption. However, there's a request to change the child's name. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this. Felipe looked at Mateo, who was standing next to him, holding his hand. He remembered their talks about the name. Mateo had expressed a wish to keep part of his name from the orphanage. Your Honor, Felipe began, Mateo would like to keep part of the name from the orphanage to thank the place that took care of him. We would like to change his name to Jose Mateo Sayas. The judge smiled and nodded. That's a very nice gesture. The adoption is approved, and the child's official name will be Jose Mateo Sayas. Felipe felt a wave of relief and joy. Thanked the judge, the lawyer, and everyone who helped with the process. When they left the courthouse, Felipe knelt down beside Jose Mateo and hugged him tightly. Jose Mateo, we are now officially a family, Felipe said with tears of happiness. Jose Mateo smiled, eyes sparkling with joy. I'm so happy, Dad. Thank you for everything. I'm happy too, son. Let's go home. We have so much to do together. As Felipe and Jose Mateo began to adjust to their new life together, Donato continued his tireless investigation. The truth about how Jose Mateo survived the accident and ended up in the orphanage was still a mystery, and Donato was determined to uncover the whole story. After weeks of researching and interviewing, Donato finally found a crucial lead. He managed to locate Amelia, the nurse who worked at the hospital when Jose Mateo was brought there after the accident. Amelia had left the hospital abruptly and seemed to have vanished, but Donato, with his investigative skills, tracked her down to a small town nearby. Donato traveled there and, with the help of local contacts, arranged a meeting with Amelia at a quiet coffee. When Donato arrived, he found a middle-aged woman with a tired but determined expression. Hi, Amelia. My name is Donato Vasquez. I'm a private investigator, and I'm here to talk about a case you know well. Donato began, trying to stay calm. Amelia looked at him with some suspicion, but then nodded. I know why you're here. It's been a long time. but I knew someone would come looking for me eventually. Donato leaned in, looking directly into her eyes. Can you tell me what really happened to baby Jose Mateo after the accident? We need to know the truth. Amelia sighed deeply and started to share her story. On the night of the accident, I was on duty at the hospital. When the baby was brought in, he was badly injured but still alive. The parents didn't survive. Then, a man approached me and offered a lot of money to hand over the baby to him. He said the child would be well cared for. Something felt off. When I refused, he threatened me. Scared, I decided to take the baby to a safe place. Donato listened carefully and made some mental notes. So, you left Jose Mateo at the orphanage? Yes, Amelia confirmed. I left him there with a note telling a false story about the parents' death. Couldn't risk him falling into the wrong hands. I also knew I couldn't take care of him alone. Donato nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. Do you know who the man was who wanted the baby? Amelia shook her head. He never revealed his name, but I knew he was someone very powerful. After that, I left the hospital and went into hiding because I was afraid he would come looking for me. Donato thanked Amelia for being honest and assured her that she would be protected. Then, he went back to Felipe Salas to report his findings. In Felipe's office, Donato went over all the details. Felipe, we got Amelia's confession. She said she was forced to give up Jose Mateo, but instead she left him at the orphanage to keep him safe. Felipe felt a mix of anger and relief. Who was behind this, Donato? Who tried to take my son? Unfortunately, Amelia couldn't identify the man, but we're getting closer to finding out. The important thing is that Jose Mateo was taken to the orphanage to protect him, not because of negligence. The information was handed over to the authorities, who started an investigation into the kidnapping and threats. Amelia agreed to testify and provided details about the man who threatened her. With her testimony, the authorities began tracking down possible suspects. Amelia's legal consequences were lessened because she helped protect Jose Mateo and cooperated with the investigation. Amelia was placed under witness protection while the search for the mysterious man continued. For Felipe Salas, learning the truth brought a sense of closure. He knew there was still work to be done to ensure Jose Mateo's safety, but now he understood how his son ended up in the orphanage. Felipe was grateful to finally have the truth and focused on building a safe and happy future for his new family. With Amelia's confession and the new leads, the investigation into the mysterious man who tried to take Jose Mateo gained momentum. Determined to uncover the full truth, Donato stepped up his efforts to identify and capture the culprit. Using all his resources and contacts, Donato finally got a solid lead. The details from Amelia, combined with old hospital records and information from other witnesses, pointed Donato to a shady businessman in the area named Victor Delgado. Victor had a history of illegal activities, including document forgery and kidnapping. Donato immediately informed Felipe and the authorities about his findings. The police set up an operation to arrest Victor and gather all the evidence needed to convict him. On the morning of the operation, Donato went with the police to Victor's mansion. The tension was high as the officers surrounded the property. The search warrant in hand, they entered Victor's house, catching him by surprise. Victor tried to resist and escape, but was quickly subdued and handcuffed. Donato, watching closely, felt a wave of relief as the man was finally captured. During the search of Victor's property, the police found a lot of fake documents, including hospital records and IDs. When they questioned Victor, he initially tried to deny everything, but the evidence was overwhelming. Under pressure, he finally admitted to trying to kidnap Jose Mateo. Victor confessed to falsifying documents to cover up Jose Mateo's disappearance and trying to sell the baby to a rich family abroad. I saw a chance to make a lot of money, Victor said coldly. I didn't care what I had to do to get it. The police not only arrested Victor but also broke up his entire network of illegal activity. News of his arrest and the shocking details about his operations quickly spread, causing a big stir in the community. Felipe, learning about Victor's arrest, felt both relief and anger. Relief that the man who kidnapped his son was finally behind bars, and anger at the terrible things Victor had done. Felipe's lawyer, Enrique, made sure all the evidence was presented in court. With Victor's confession and the collected evidence, the conviction was swift and severe. Victor was sentenced to many years in prison for kidnapping José Mateo, falsifying documents, and doing many other bad things. Felipe felt that a tough chapter of his life was finally coming to an end. He went to thank Donato personally for all his hard work. "Donato, you brought my son back and made sure justice was done. I can't express how grateful I am," Felipe said, shaking the investigator's hand. "It was a pleasure to help, Felipe. Seeing the truth come out and knowing that José Mateo is safe is the best reward," Donato replied with a smile. For Felipe and José Mateo, life was finally starting to be more peaceful and happy. They continued to grow closer, and Felipe worked hard to give José Mateo a childhood full of love and fun. Felipe's house, once quiet and lonely, was now full of life and laughter. José Mateo, now knowing his true self and surrounded by his father's love, was thriving. Felipe made sure that José Mateo felt comfortable and safe. He redecorated a room just for his son, with all the toys and books Mateo had always dreamed of. The walls were decorated with José Mateo's drawings, constant reminder of the boy's creativity and resilience. "José Mateo, this is your home now. I want you to feel free to be yourself," Felipe said as he hung the last drawing on the wall. José Mateo smiled with his eyes sparkling with happiness. "Thank you, Dad. I've never had a room like this. Perfect." Besides adjusting to their new home life, Felipe continued his charitable work with renewed energy. Felipe believed that his good deeds could change the world and fill people's hearts with hope. With José Mateo by his side, Felipe visited schools, hospitals, and orphanages, always looking for ways to help those in need. At a charity event, Felipe gave an inspiring speech about the importance of helping others. "My life has changed a lot in the past few months, and it made me realize how important it is to have compassion and kindness. When we help those in need, we find a greater purpose and a deep sense of fulfillment," Felipe said. José Mateo, always by his father's side, watched with admiration as Felipe worked. He began to understand the importance of giving back to the community and often helped with charitable activities, handing out toys and books to other children. Every year on Andrea's birthday, Felipe and José Mateo made a special visit to her grave. It was a time for reflection and tribute. Felipe always brought fresh flowers, and José Mateo placed one of his drawings on the grave, showing Andrea that even from afar, they still felt connected. "Andrea, I miss you every day, but I promise I'm doing everything I can to take care of our son. He's an amazing boy, full of life and dreams," Felipe said, feeling Andrea's presence in every word. José Mateo held Felipe's hand and added, "Mommy, I'm okay. Daddy takes great care of me, and I always think about you. I hope you're proud of us." Over time, Felipe and José Mateo settled into their new life. Their home was filled with love, laughter, and hope. They spent their days exploring new hobbies, like gardening and cooking together, and their nights reading stories before bed. Felipe also began speaking publicly about his journey at charity events, using his experiences to inspire others to never give up even during tough times. He wanted to show the world that there's always hope. "José Mateo, I want you to always remember that no matter what happens, there is always hope," Felipe said as they spent time together. "I love it, Daddy. I think we're going to help a lot of people," José Mateo replied with a proud smile. Felipe and José Mateo's life was a testament to the power of love and perseverance. Together, they faced big challenges and came out stronger, continuing to work hard to help others and believing that kindness and compassion can truly change the world. As Felipe and José Mateo looked to the future, they knew that no matter what happened, they would always have each other. With that, they were ready to face anything that came their way, always with their hearts full of hope and their minds set on doing good. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you did, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more stories like this. Give us a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.